through fire with shadows on my heels. Scars turn to stories that taught me to feel. Lost in the silence, found in the flame. Now wear my battle cry without shame. This isn't the end, it's where I begin. A soul that remembers the fire within.
Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, brought to you by Praxis 33. I'm your host, Daryl Snow. Let's dive in. As a best-selling author, Moza-Bella produces and hosts the digital TV show Lessons from Failures on Fox 5 and PIX 11. She's featured on ABC, Fox, Yahoo Finance, Forbes, and various other media. In partnership with billionaire Grant Cardone, she's a leader in the global 10X movement, empowering businesses to dominate their markets. And even though she's experienced a lot of success, a few years ago, Moza-Bella hit rock bottom. She'd lost her job. She lost both her father and her fiancé to cancer, and everything she'd built her life around disappeared. And Moza-Bella had a choice. She could let grief define her, or she could rebuild with purpose. And she chose to rebuild, and through her own warrior spirit, she's been able to show others the way forward. So I appreciate you joining me today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today, Daryl.
You, as I said, are highly successful. You also went through your own struggles. You were born and raised in Vietnam. How old were you when you finally came to America?
So I came here when I was 25, 26 years old. When I came here, Daryl, they said that I was told that I was too old to learn English, to speak English fluently. And no, but at that point, it may be the truth, right? I had to learn. And you know what? The reason for me to learn is not because I wanted to prove to anybody. It's just because I understood, when you came, and this may speak with some of your the audience, your people out there, that English is not their primary language. You think, when you come to another country, regardless of whichever, and you think your thought processes, you have all of your thought processes as an adult, but then you don't have enough vocabulary in another language to express yourself. Then all of a sudden you feel that you are in such disadvantage. So my motivation to learn to communicate English, because I wanted to be understood, and I wanted to understand others, right? But then most importantly, I wanted to be understood.
So, what brought you to America in your mid-20s? A lot of times when people immigrate here, they do so as children, or for some other thing late in life. What brought you to our country? Now your country.
So yes, 25 years, yes,
Oh.
and yes, but thank you. I so I was born right after Vietnam War. 1976, Vietnam War ended in 1975. My parents, actually, they got married, like they got married prior, but then they waited because they was hoping that they would have children after the war was over, and thankfully that it did, right? And I graduated my first bachelor degree in Vietnam. My parents, I had beautiful parents, and they believed in formal education. They gave me the best life that I could ask for during that time, and graduated from college. And then my father wanted for me to pursue higher education. And, think about, 30 years ago, Vietnam was not the Vietnam like today. He wanted to send me to the United States because that was the land of the greatest, right? Think about it. We were in a third world country. It was the land of opportunity, of great education, and for human rights. So they worked very hard. They sent me here with a lot of money, but they sacrificed so that I could have a brighter future.
Did you come alone, or did you come with other family?
No, I came by myself. And then we had my parents had a good, they had good friends, and that family had a son, the only son. And they said, well, your daughter is gonna come here anyway, so might as well just let, the both of them get to know one another. And we did. And the whole idea is that if we could be together as a couple, then I would not have to be by myself, right? And we talked, and he was a very good man, very good family. But then, it didn't work out as it didn't last long, because sometimes you can respect one another as like friend, very good friend, brothers and sister. But marriage is different. It has to be love, right?
For sure. But now I'm a few years older than you, admittedly, and I was old enough to remember the 70s quite well. Um, so coming from, as you said, a third world country into what the 70s were here in America, that had to be tremendous culture shock for you. What city did you first come to?
New York.
Yeah. So
That that was an old airport. So, mind you that like before that, I traveled to uh, Japan, right? And Japan at that point, everything was, is modern. And you came to New York, it was cold. It was in January, it was cold, and the airport was kind of, is huge, but it's older. I'm like, okay, well, is this the United States, right? But it was different. But then, in regards to culture shock, it how do I say, like, number one, I just wanted to be, I wanted to communicate just like everybody else. As an adult, think about it. I graduated from college in Vietnam. I worked for a couple of years in management position in Vietnam, right? I was in hospitality industry. And then you came to a country where you didn't have any background. So you may be in the room, but you were not in the conversation.
Mhm.
So it hurt your ego, right?
Well, when you go from, highly successful coming to basically the bottom of the totem pole again, you don't know the country, you don't know the language, you don't know the customs, you don't know the people, you don't have friends here that you can hang with to learn. And then you throw the disco era of New York City in on top of it with the wild fashion and the psychedelic drugs and partying. Um, the fact that you navigated all that and made it into Harvard, like we have people that were born and raised here that can't get into Harvard. How did you how did you excel so well that you became a Harvard graduate?
It was Harvard University, and that was in Connecticut, and that was a private school,
Mm,
right? When I heard when you came here, there are two universities that you wanted so bad. It was Yale University and Harvard University, right? You
mhm,
heard about it, you wanted to go there. But when I came, I realized that number one, I could not, like, you either had to have a lot of money to pay for the school, or you had to have some sort of scholarship. I came already too late. I did not come here. I did not go to high school here because I was a straight A student, but it was not from here. So then I missed the opportunity. I don't know if you've ever in the position where you came and you knew that's what you really wanted, but you're a little bit too late
mhm.
to get that opportunity, and you knew that you're so qualified, right? And then you didn't have money to pay to be in there. So then what would be the next choice, right? I applied for other schools, and Harvard, that was the university that accepted my application. I had to go through the interview and things like that, and I went to my master's degree, from that school. I had to pay for it, but that was my story. Um, Yeah, you know what, the education, a lot of people would argue that formal education, you wouldn't learn anything from it, but I did. It may not be for a lot of people, may not be for you, may not be for your friend, or maybe it's a different generation now. But for me, I learned how to think critically. Regardless of whatever, I learned how to formulate my sentences right. So the way that I speak today is because I went to school.
Do you think that the education of having to learn a new language helped you, not only your desire to want to learn, which is key in and of itself, but the fact that you had to go through that process at a later age intensifies the desire and the work ethic necessary in order to do that. You told me off camera that you were a ballerina. And you also told me off camera that you didn't consider yourself a warrior or a warrior spirit. But
Right.
I challenge that assessment because I understand what it takes to be a ballerina. There's a lot of hard work and dedication just to be able to stand on your toes for 3 minutes at a time and move about quickly or correctly. And secondly, as I said in your bio, you lost your job, you lost your father and your fiance to cancer. And it takes a warrior's heart and a warrior's spirit to not let all of that push you down and keep you down. Because you've come across a ton of people in your life, as have I, who adversity freezes them. They stay stuck in it, they don't move past it. And I assess that it's your warrior spirit in your heart that got you through all that stuff. Would you agree with any of that?
That does, so you bring me back, and thank you for asking this question. So first of all, when you're right, when you asked me to be on the show, I didn't think that I would fit, I would qualify, right? Because I never thought that I was a strong person, right? I'm looking at the picture that you have on the screen here, with the two, a male and a female, right? Beautiful, standing strong. I never thought that I was a strong person because I knew in my heart I have a very, I'm very, soft, and I'm very vulnerable. I always feel that I'm very vulnerable as an introvert. Um, so going back to when you talked about I was a ballerina, I was a kid and I wanted to be on stage, and I love dancing because I could express myself through music. Because I was an introvert, I don't talk a lot. So I just feel my thoughts. So I don't know if that would make sense to maybe some of you out there that you may relate. But you have a lot of your thoughts, running. You're thinking a lot, but then you don't say it. It just for some whatever reason, like say verbalizing your thoughts is just like it's not as easy. But then I can feel the music when I was dancing, and that's what I love, right? Being a ballerina, helped me to be. Um, um, I I don't know how to say, raise my expectation very high. So I don't want to say that I was a perfectionist. I'm not today because I learned like not to be, but I always had very high standard of myself. um, and how do I get to that point to be on stage and to be perfect, in my eyes, right? I had to, just discipline. So I never stopped learning. I had, so I set the target, and then I had to reach that target, and I wanted to exceed that target. So over the years when I was a kid performing, 5 years in a row, I received the award to be, the number one dancer, right? In that town and in Vietnam. So, and then when you as a kid, you had only one goal. So that was a discipline that would help you to go through that. As an adult, when I went through, grief, when life just taught you how to survive after grief or through grief, right? I think there's a difference between losing somebody suddenly, or you went through the grieving process with them knowing that they are dying. So
Yeah,
it's a different, totally
yeah,
different way to deal with it, right?
yeah.
And
One is a very sudden removal, and one is a almost a joining in the process. Not only are they passing, but you feel your part of you is passing with them because you experience the heartache and the break. And my wife has been chronically ill for 10 years, and I've watched her suffer. She's almost lost her life a couple times through her illness. So I even though through the grace of God she's still here with me, I understand the grieving process of watching the ones you love, you know, diminish in their capacity and then ultimately perishing. So it is a different grief, and I think it's an attribute to you to stand by somebody who is going through that. It takes a lot to become the caregiver, and to help them. I don't think enough caregivers get the credit that they deserve for what they've done, and so it takes a lot for that to happen, and it takes a lot of emotional strength to go through that kind of loss. And so I will label you a warrior all day long because you have withstood your challenges and you're still standing and you're still helping others and you're still reaching behind you, caring about how they, are doing. I don't often do a pre-interview with any of my guests. Been a rare few. You and I did a pre-interview, and that was more for what you wanted to ask than what I wanted to ask. But through even that process, it was very loud and clear that all you wanted to do was help me make my show better. And yeah, you're coming on here and you're sharing your story and you're, doing your thing and you're going to take from this what you will. But your whole mentality was, how can I make his show better? How can I be better for his audience? I am going to label you a warrior all day long because that's what it's about. And
and you are too, and you are too, and thank you for saying that. Now, I just wanted to number one, like, for you to be the caregiver for that long, and don't quit, right? Because a lot of people, when you deal with a lot of, not just, when people don't understand, when you deal with, your loved one that is going through a hard time, you have, like, it emotionally, mentally drain you. Not just, the physical part is like a no-brainer, like it's already a given. It drains you, and then it's over time, it's every day, every day, every day. Like, how can you do this? Like, the strength that you have inside of you is just tremendous. And after, after the loss of my father, I was asking God, like, why is it that I had to go through this? But then since then, I felt, I gained the compassion towards caregivers, right? And then during the time when my fiance was having cancer and I had to take care of him at home while, during, because at that time I was working as a nurse. So I was taking care of all the people. And then I came home, I took care of him. So then I had the sympathy that nobody else could have towards the caregivers. Because everybody that come to me is a caregiver. I said, okay, well, and they always talking about the patient, right? Okay, so your mom is doing this, or your wife, she's doing good, blah, 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 blah. But then I always ask, how about you? Are you okay? And everybody, 100 people, whoever that I talked to, they started to have tears in their eyes because nobody cared for them. So I said, the sick person, the patient, had the whole team to take care of them, but nobody cares for the caregiver. They by themselves, they running around, they take care of the parent and the patient, right? And then they go home and they by themselves and they forgot how to take care of themselves. But somehow they had to keep all the pieces together so that nothing is going to fall apart. Life is not going to fall apart. The house is not going to fall apart. The bills have to be paid. So any of you out there that are or have been in the position of caregivers, like my heart to you, I understand. And Daryl too, he understands you too.
Yeah, and what do you think? What do you think it is within people like you and I? And my wife was a caregiver to her. Her parents are immigrants. They came here from Portugal when she was 3, and she, grew up in Boston, and so they didn't speak the language. Unlike you, they never learned the language. Her father was actually illiterate because he had to quit school in the 4th grade to work the family farm growing up. And so she was a caregiver to her parents her entire life. She had to go to the doctors and translate for them when she was 7 and 9 years old because they didn't know the language. And then she was the caregiver for her son because her and her first husband separated early in, so her whole life she was a caregiver. And then to have to be given care too, it made it really challenging for her because she lost the ability to work. She lost, both her parents eventually passed away. Her son, moved out because he was older. So she lost her entire identity at the same time that she got sick. So she didn't know what to do other than be sick for a few years. And as she's, worked her way back out of it, she's still trying to find her identity. Who am I when I'm not the caregiver? So what other than culture, because I think culture played a little bit of your ability to caregive. I think it's kind of naturally ingrained that that's what you do. But other than that, what gave you the strength and the heart to be there in that capacity for your fiance?
I think that's a personal choice. I don't think that's the cultural thing. Um, it's just like, yes, being raised, like that you take care of your parents, but it's very, like it's like it's ethical, like it's your value that's the expectation, right? But then for my fiance, like that was my choice. When we first met, I knew that he had cancer. All of my friends around me said, "No, you shouldn't get into that relationship. It's not gonna be good," right? But I made that choice because I didn't have the heart to leave somebody that were going through hardship. And you don't leave people when they need help. You do the same, right? And your wife do, too, the same. And I feel that that's why, Daryl, that what you do is, that your business is so important, because then you help the women. You told me that, okay, you work with women. I asked you why women, because most majority, not everybody, but majority, um, women would be the caregiver, the caretaker, the person that would take care of the family. And most of the time, they would forget themselves. They would put themselves secondary. At some point, like you said, it just like, how do they claim their worth? They usually would claim their worth for what they do or the success of their children, but not who they are. So I think it's so important, and it's so valuable that what you do to help all the women out there, so that they can feel that they are seen, they are heard, and they can reclaim their identity.
Yeah, it has been my experience that females tend to put themselves second or third or fifth or ninth or 100th, depending on how long their list is. Rarely do they put themselves first, and they really need to. Being selfless is not selfish. You have to learn to give from your full cup, not from the leftovers. And so I think it's important that they start with that. switching gears for just a second, you said you said that you're an introvert and you don't like to talk, yet you have this TV show. Can you explain how you acquired being on television and doing this TV show and what it's all about?
I love edify people because nobody helped me when I started. I know that we all have our voice, but how can we be heard, right? There was a woman and she was on stage and she said that her dream and her mission is to be so big that her voice could be heard so that she could help other people. Um, so how did she say? I want to say it, verbatim. She said that I want to be big enough that my voice can be heard so I can speak for all the people that cannot speak for themselves. And I thought that was so inspirational, right? And when you started, so my TV show just not too long ago, but people said that, okay, when you first started your business, then you have to get on other people's stages, right? So like, I would have to look for other people who have a show like you, Daryl, and I would ask, hey, can I be on your show? But then I would not be qualified. Nobody would give you the first like would open the first door for you, right? And that was the hardest. And I don't blame them because I was not good. So eventually, when I could build the stage for myself, then I wanted to give that for the people who were very good at what they do, or who are very good at what they do, but then they never had a chance to tell their story, right? When you do your business for a long time, just like you, Daryl, you do your business, you've done this business for a long time. For how many years? You said 40 years. Then people don't talk about like your story. They talk more about what you do and your success and how you help other people. But then I believe that the people will connect with us more when they know about your failures, like the time that was a hard time, and what is it the one thing that helped you to stand up and strive, not just for survival, but then thrive after that. And everybody's story is different. That's what I've learned. You can have the same principle, but everybody's story is different. And my story may resonate with just a small group of people, but may not resonate with other people. But then your story, Daryl, may resonate with a lot of people. And I think collectively, if we can reach out to more people, then we all can lift up humanity, right? Because myself, I cannot do much, but all of us collectively, we can help more people. And that's my goal. And why is it? I mean, it sounds kind of, cliche. I don't have children. Whatever I do, it doesn't, like a lot of people would say they do this because they want, to leave their legacy for their children, for grandchildren. I don't have any of that. So then what I do today matters because when I died, nobody cares.
Mm. I think, again, I'm going to challenge you on that because your legacy is being built on all of those that you help. My father was a blue collar worker who never was known anywhere outside the lodge that he belonged to, the little club network that he belonged to. But his legacy lives on through me and what he instilled in me, and the thousands of people that I've helped have helped dozens and thousands of others. So I think what you do does matter. And I think you're building a legacy that truly is going to live on through what you've given back to others. And I think that's why when you partner with, Grant Cardone, like that is not, first off, it's not a picture that everyone's going to get a chance to do because they don't get to stand next to him, but you get to know him and work with him. So how does a immigrant from Vietnam who can't speak the language go on to being, a successful 10x movement leader who empowers build businesses to dominate their market? How does that come
Yeah,
about?
right. Yeah, I never put it like that. You're right. You put like those two together. That's like yeah. Well, thank you. I don't know why, but I never thought it that way. It's just one step after another. Like, you know, and I'm sure that you've heard of this analogy, right? If you want to go, to a destination, and you think that, okay, I'm gonna just get on in the car and I'm gonna drive, and it's dark. It's right now, so it's like 8 p.m. at night, and you can see beyond the light of the headlight. Would you stop going, or would you just go because that's the direction, and you're gonna just moving forward? So that's exactly how I did. I just one step at a time. This is what I wanted, and one step at a time. And let me tell you why I wanted to do this. So years ago, when Clubhouse was still a thing, you
Yes.
remember Clubhouse?
Yeah, I do.
And this is after, like, my dad died and my fiance died, and all of a sudden I had time for myself. So I had to do something, right? I through grief, I found the time for me to read a lot, and to listen to things that we call nowadays, self-development. I didn't know
Hmm.
that was what I was doing, but I just needed some inspiration and some reason for me to live, and to move on. So I came across Grant Cardone in some of his, messages online, and I applied some of the things that he said. And during that time, I listened to other people too, not just Grant. But Grant, there are two things that he taught me. Number one, that having life is abundant, and wanting to have more money is not greed. It's your responsibility to be successful so you can help other people. I never learned that before. Nobody told me that before when I was younger. Okay. And number two, he said that if I ask you right now, how you doing? You said, I'm good. Okay, well, I have a house, I have a job, I make good money, I'm good. Do you want to do more? No, I'm good. Like, I'm good right now. And that was me. Because I had a good job, everything is good, like everything is good. I'm not in poverty. He said, that's selfish. You see, it's about you. You are good. How about other people? The people that cannot work for themselves, how many people can you help? So now I'm thinking, oh wow, so now I'm selfish. So now that's, so that gave me the inspiration to do more. And when he said that he was looking for, other people in other countries to kind of be the leader in his 10x movement. And I looked on his website and I didn't see Vietnam. I said, that's it, I will be that person. So I called the office and I said, okay, I wanted to do that. Of course, you had to do a lot of investment, right? But it's totally worth it. It gave me the mission that was bigger than myself. That's exactly what I was looking for, right? So go back to the destination. I was looking for something that was a mission that was greater than myself. And I found it. I wanted to give the inspiration to the people in Vietnam who did not have the thought, who did not have the opportunity to know, to think bigger, to know that life is abundance. Because for the entire, like, for generations, life was, like, we all had scarcity mindset because we all experienced the war, right? It was very hard for somebody to go through, like, even for my parents' generation, to know that, okay, life is abundance. No, life is scarcity. Like, you never know, one day you have fruit, the next day you don't.
Yeah, my wife and I feel the exact same way you do. We give because it's the right thing to do, even when we have little, because then we know we're going to be entrusted with more. Because if you can do with little, God will entrust you with more. And I she and I, there'll be times where we're just, I don't care, walking down the street, going through a grocery store, whatever, and we'll feel that spirit that says this is a person we need to help for in whatever manner, buy their groceries, give them a 20, whatever. And we do it freely and without fanfare because it's spirit led. We're here to be in service of others and to give back to others. And that does make your mission on life. I don't think any of us are here for ourselves. I think we're here to glorify God in whatever capacity God looks like to that person, but to give back and to help others. My wife, even on her deathbed, was giving back to others, and I would argue with her, like, look, I'm just trying to keep you alive. What do you mean we have to do this? And she's like, no, we have to do this. So I think your mentality on money and the fact that it switched is what's going to give you purpose. And again, go back to building your legacy. Because if, like, I'm always baffled at these people who say money's like evil, right? No, the love of money is evil, but money itself is just energy and it just flows. Like if I want to go into McDonald's and buy everybody a hamburger, I got to have some freaking money, right? I can't just
Right.
go in with my charm and say, "Hey, everything's on me because I'm a nice guy." No, I got to have some freaking money. And I don't care what level you're trying to do that at. It is, and he was right, Grant was right. It is selfish of us to only be concerned with we're doing good. My bills are paid, my lights are on, my food's in the cupboard. Okay, then earn enough for you, but then earn enough for the overflow that we talked about earlier, whether it be emotional or financial or spiritual. It has to come from your overflow. Again, you can't give from that empty cup. So I think that is it's a message that a lot more people need to understand and to get comfortable with. It's not about you. It's about what you can do for others. So
Yeah.
be the best at whatever you're going to be. I don't care if it's the janitor or the CEO or anybody in between. Be the best at that so that you have the capacity to help those around you. And you don't have to help the whole world. Just help your little corner of the world. Light one candle and make that darkness brighter.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, totally. And I know that some people they want to do, so they know of that saying, right, of that principle, but then it's harder for them to totally believe in it. It's hard, like even for myself, right? Life is abundance. I know that, but then if you go back to people with poverty, like how could you help them to know that they have the ability to create? Because the abundance come from, yes, God would give you the resources, but then you need to take action to create things for your life and for others.
Yeah, that's that four-letter word that no one likes, work.
Uh-huh.
You know?
That's right.
And anyone
True.
who's watched my show hears me say it all the time. I can give you a golden shovel, but you're never gonna get a hole unless you put a foot to it. You have to have some effort. It's co-creation for a reason. You know, God or spirit or source, they're not your mystical ATM that just doles stuff out. You gotta do something to, participate in that as well. So I think it's a co-creation effort.
And it hurts me, like like in the younger generation, I've seen more and more people that they don't want to work because they want easy money. I think after COVID, everybody wanted to do something more online, and they can make a lot of money. And for some reason, they thought that is the reality. There's a way for you to make money easy. So they feel like is the work ethics is the thing that I think all of us, business owners, I work with a lot of business owners that would need to hire employees to come to work. And they just, not everybody, but the majority of them just don't work the way we did when we were younger.
Yeah, it's definitely a more of an entitled society now. I look at, I have a child who's 27 and one who's 34, and I look at how they come home and say they're tired after an 8-hour job. And, people like you and I worked 12, 14, 16 hours, may not all have been at the job, but we did other stuff after that. And we
Oh, yeah,
didn't complain about being tired. We just like
yeah,
did it, you know?
yeah.
So I'm always fascinated by that.
When I was, I don't think I ever told you this, but when I went to school, I went to school full time, right? At that point, So I came here, I got my bachelor degree, but I needed some courses to be qualified for my master's. So I went to um, community college because
Mhm.
it was cheaper, right?
Mhm.
And four classes would be full time. But at that point, at my school, if you got more than four, if you register more than like four courses, then any other courses after that is going to be free.
Mm.
So I always took six courses per semester, and I had to have all A's because an A minus to me, it was like you almost failed, you almost made it, right? So then you got to have A's. And then I worked, so I went to school full time, but then I had to work. I had to find a job where I could pay for my school and I could pay for me to have food and, for my living. I didn't have anybody. So then I went to school full time. I worked at night and during the weekends. And when I came back home from work, I had to study for my exams. Because you remember when you went to college, you have, like quizzes, you have exams, you have
Mhm.
just turn around, you have just all of those, right? That you had to do all of that. So sleep was, I never thought that, so I think I was sleeping maybe like 5 or 4 hours, and that was for years. It's
Yeah.
not just like for a few months, it was for years. And you go back to, I think that we talked about that before, Gerald. I never thought that, okay, well, I was so great that I did it. I just, this is what you need to do. And that's it. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I didn't think that I was great. I didn't have time to think about these things. It's just like, this is what I this needs to get done, and you just do it.
Yeah. You just find the way, no matter what the way is, because there's something at the end that you need to accomplish. Speaking of which, you also accomplished something not many get to accomplish. You did a TEDx talk?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That was my dream. I said I wanted to be on that stage. I speak with an accent. Um,
No.
the and I know that, like, I speak with an accent. My English is not good enough. It's still not perfect. I'm still learning every day. I want to make sure that whenever I pronounce any word, I want to make sure that I speak very clearly so people could understand, right? Because communication is a key. If whatever I say people don't understand, then what is the point? And TED Talk was the stage where we all like feel inspired by all of the thought leaders, right? And it was my dream. And you believe in the vision board, right, Daryl? Like you teach people how to do the vision board,
Yeah.
and that was my dream. And I put it on my vision board. I wanted to
Why?
be on that stage
Why?
because I because the message was strong enough for me. I wanted to say it. I see that people, and this is a few years ago, I saw that the younger generation, they just spend a lot of money on things that don't matter, like signature, clothes, like, just like all of the brand name products, instead of using that effort and that resources to learn for themselves, right? We're talking about invest in yourself. And the way they invest in themselves is just like all of the superficial stuff, like physical stuff. That's not investing in yourself. We're talking like they just took it at a different level, and then, oh, buying me things, so that I feel better, I look better. That's invest in myself. No, that is so wrong. So that was my message on TED Talk.
So let me ask you, how is the Moza-Bella of today different from the young girl, other than learning the language, different from the girl 15 years ago?
15 years ago, I was thinking small. I was thinking small. There was an analogy, a story that there was a frog at the end, at the bottom of the well, right? So the frog at the bottom, and he looked up, and he looked at the circle and said, "That is the sky." And there was somebody else said, "Hey, frog, how are you doing?" "I'm doing fine." "Are you okay?" "Yes, I am." "Do you know that the sky is big?" "No, I know exactly what the sky looks like because I see it every day." I said, no, the sky is bigger. I said, no, the sky is round and it's right there and I can see the whole sky. Until one day there was a flood and the frog was brought up to the open of the well, and now he could totally see the whole world. I said, oh my God, I never knew, right? So I was that frog. I didn't know the world. I didn't know all of the opportunities. I didn't know that life is abundance. I didn't know that we have the ability to create. And I didn't know that God gave us that gift. And now, because I learned that, I feel the responsibility to do more for other people. Does it make sense? I don't know if I
Absolutely.
explained myself
No,
clearly.
absolutely. Yeah, that's and I love the analogy of the frog and the vision. You know, we only see our small corner and we don't realize that there's so much more beyond the picture if we are willing to open our eyes and experience it and look. So what do you want your legacy to be?
I don't know if I wanted to build my legacy. My mission, I know very clear that my mission is to help people to create their legacy.
Hmm.
I, my dad was a wonderful person. He was a very talented leader, and he lived his whole life serving other people in Vietnam. He served in the war, and he served after the war when the war was over. He was a CEO of a big company that he had hundreds of employees, and he always lived for other people. And he died for cancer 11 years ago. I don't have any of the record of everything he did. He never wrote a book. No, I don't have a footage of his TV interview or podcast. There was no podcast then. I don't even have a recording of his voice in my phone, and that is one thing that I will forever regret. I spent my time with him during that time, but I didn't think about it. So now I don't have his voice. And it took me a while, Daryl, for me to say this without crying. And I don't want anybody to feel that way. Like, I am a daughter, and I wonder, like, I wish that I could see him speaking, right? I wish that I could hear his story from his own narrative. It's not from other people, his friends now telling me, or my mom, like, piece by piece, and we try to put things together, pieces together. I wish that we had a chance for him to tell his story. And that chance was over. Like, I don't have that. So now I want to create that for other people. So for your children, Daryl, for other people's children or grandchildren, they never had a chance to see you as a powerful man, as a powerful woman, right? By the time they know you and, they get to know you, you're already an old person. And then, they see you from a different light. That's why I do what I do. I put people on the spotlight so they had a chance to tell their story, to tell things that matters to them, why they do what they do, why they work so hard. Their
You
own voice.
realize though that you are part of that equation. You you have family, you have friends, you have loved ones who love you even from afar, even if they're in the other country, even if they're in the next room. When your voice stops, they're going to want the same thing, even though they're not, you're not their parent, you are their loved one. So they're going to want to hear your voice. They're going to want to see you on that stage. They want to look, we've known each other for 49 minutes plus the half hour that we spoke, on the phone the other day. But I can tell you this, you're a friggin' dynamo and you have a lot of power within you. And even though you say that you're an introvert, your light shines from within, and it is huge, and it needs to be out there in more ways. Yes, you got your TV show, and yes, you're helping, millionaire, entrepreneurs and people get, but there's an essence in you that needs to shine as well, because those people that love you will want the same thing that you're wanting for your father right now. And you are worthy of that legacy, whether you want to call it a legacy or not. Because somebody will look to you and say, my cousin, my sister, my whatever, went to America, and not only did she survive, she thrived and she dominated. And I want the power that she had so I can go do it too.
Yeah, whatever that you see in me is, the gift from God. And this is another lesson that I learned too, Daryl, that when people see anything that give you a compliment, it's not, they don't see me. Like you see the light, right? You see the energy, you see whatever that God gave me that gift. And the gift is for me to give. It's not for me to hold it for myself. Um, so maybe because of that energy, and because of the, like you said, whatever that people see in me, I put out that message. And we have the community on social media, right? And people, we all have our community, right? So we're just surrounded by the people that appreciate, our message. And my message is always about kindness and love, and inspire people to do more for yourself and for others. It's always like that. I don't, there's a lot of people ask me, like, why don't you, people, there are haters out there. And yeah, I'm sure, but I don't see them. Because I don't pay attention to them, right? You don't pay attention to the news, and not really, because it's going to be good news and bad news. They will talk about the bad news because that's what they do to sell more news, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't pay attention to that. I believe strongly, Daryl, that people are kind. We are kind, and we are generous, and we have another love. Just give us the opportunity. Just give people the opportunity to share love. They will do it. And that's what I believe so strongly in all of my being.
So I'm going to ask you one final question, because your perception, I hope, after this hour has changed. What does a warrior spirit mean to you now?
Mm, but we don't quit. We serve a greater mission, and we don't quit. Is that right?
It's right for you. I think that's the essence of what your entire life has been about. You don't quit in spite of any obstacles, in spite of any troubles, in spite of any traumas or hardships. You don't quit. And that's what it's all about, in my
Yes. And
opinion.
I think it's easier for people not to quit is when you found your purpose and your mission.
Hmm.
So the reason I don't quit, because I know that I have a greater mission, greater than myself.
And that's what it needs to be. It has to be greater than ourselves. It's when it becomes about ourselves, when it gets hard, it's easy to say, well, I don't deserve that anyway, or I'm unworthy of it in some fashion. But when it's for somebody else, it has to be done, right?
Right. Yes,
Well, I
yes,
appreciate you joining me on this episode, and thank you for all that you do to keep shining that beautiful light.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daryl. You're so generous sharing your space and your community with me. And I I think you are the sample of a warrior. Like, you've done this religiously, faithfully for a long time. How many years have you been doing this?
This is year 4, so it and when I
That's a lot of dedication. At
yeah,
any point in life, you could have said, okay, this is it. Like, I don't need to do this anymore, but you keep doing it.
yeah, I'll keep doing it as long as God tells me it's His mission for me. So, yep.
There you
But
go.
I appreciate you. And if you'd like to get into contact with Moza-Bella, you can do so on her website, maza-bella.com, or on her social platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And as always, thank you for joining us on this edition of A Warrior Spirit. Be sure to like or subscribe so you catch all the episodes. You can tune in on all the major platforms, as well as on Roku via the Prospera TV app. And remember, the journey is sacred, the warrior is you, so be inspired, be empowered, and embrace the spirit of the warrior within.
It's not just about the fight, it's how we rise from it.